Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the practice log. Alright, well, it's another morning session. As you can see from the light, we have a lot planned today, so let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? Alright, back to the old greasy, grisly grind. I have a topic that I want to get into today, and it's going to be the defense of my Segovia video and all my crazy opinions that I had, and maybe a little bit of revisions too. First, let's talk about what we're going to do today. I'm making pretty good progress on the Presto and the Morel movement too, so that's kind of cool. So I'm just going to keep trucking along through that Presto. I would like to have the Adagio memorized. I mean, it's all the usual stuff, and I'm going to play something for you, I'm sure. I've been taking this time to answer comment questions, so let's take a look at the comments section. The sentiments are actually pretty mixed in the comments. I'm noticing there are a lot of people agreeing with me. You're showing up to Segovia's class. It's his, like, televised show, and when you show up with different fingerings of his own arrangement and fingered score, it's kind of like a disrespectful first impression, so he might be inclined to kick you out, especially because he's kind of a jerk. Yeah, which the first comment, Jack Crew a sick. He basically summed it up with that. Segovio's not a good teacher, he was cut out to be more of a performer. And, like, in my opinion at least, performing and teaching should be kind of at the same level. Like, if you're a performer, you should also be a teacher as much as you are a performer. There'd be no point in my career where I ever stopped teaching, just because you learn so much from teaching. I don't know, at least in my experience, I never got truly comfortable to the level that I am now with the fundamentals until I actually became a teacher and started teaching like 45 lessons a week where we just hammer that stuff in. I feel like it's almost like a requirement once you get to a certain level to just start teaching, and that's when you can really get your foundations down. Like, of course you can do it without being a teacher, obviously. I like being a teacher though. Alright, now the main comment that I wanted to get to, this one is from Guitar Man, friend of the channel, just like Jack, but Guitar Man, we don't see him often, but whenever we do see him, he's always coming in hot with something, which is always fun. The last thing we saw of him that I talked about, I think, was the Julian Bream horror story that he had. The episode is titled, like, Yet Another Victim of Julian Bream. So you can find the Guitar Man story there. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, he's disagreeing with me, but he's also not being disrespectful, and he's just stating his opinion, and that's okay. So I'm gonna try to do the same thing. Like, I appreciate you watching, giving us your opinion. I think that adds value to the whole thing. So, you know, I'm gonna give you the floor. We're gonna read your comment, and I'm just gonna comment on your comment, and that's what this is. I must disagree with a lot of your viewpoints, and again, that is okay. Firstly, by playing a Segovia transcription to Segovia himself, using his fingering / portamentos, etc., merely means that you end up trying to be a Segovia imitator, showing none of your own personal interpretation. So, just that part, what I want to get into. Of course, for your own musical interpretation, you want to eventually not play everything exactly like Segovia, perhaps. Or maybe you do, and that could also be part of your interpretation, because it's really anything you want it to be. It doesn't matter if it's original or not, because is there really an original? I'll just talk about my experience a little bit. I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of, like, a beginner guitarist making my way up to now, which even me to now, I'm not touching Chap Delaney in that video. He's still in a different world than I am at this point. I do have, like, my 14 years of guitar experience that I'm calling upon. When you're at a level and you're trying to get to the next level, I think that the best way to learn is to just blatantly copy the other people at that level. And now people might hear that and be like, oh, well, you're just gonna sound like them. Try copying somebody and then sounding exactly like them. You're just not gonna sound exactly like them. Your own style will develop from that. I think back to when I was learning, like, rock solos and jazz solos and stuff. I would transcribe and learn jazz solos that I wanted to sound more like when I was improvising. I would pick, like, Charlie Parker because I wanted to sound like Charlie Parker because he's dope. And guess what? I never sounded anything like Charlie Parker, really. I just kind of had more Charlie Parker flavors, which is not sounding exactly like Charlie Parker. Like, I'm never gonna sound just like him. So I think the whole, like, fear of sounding exactly like somebody else is kind of blown out of proportion. And that's the thing, when I'm teaching a student and we're talking about, like, dynamics and stuff, I give them opportunities to come up with their own dynamics, but a lot of times they can't, because they just don't have the vocabulary to, like, even express. They don't even know what a dynamic is. So what I do is I just give them dynamics, and guess what? These dynamics are just what I would do. And I expect, like, even if they're copying all the decisions that I would make, once they really, like, have a feel for how the dynamics even work and what they are, they can kind of start messing things around. Like, they can do the opposite of what I do, or do it less, or do it more. I think it's helpful to have a framework based on someone who's better than you, and you should just go ahead and just try to copy it as much as you can. And again, I feel like people hear that, and it sounds bad just copying somebody. Your musical journey, like where you want to be versus where you are, it's not just a straight line of the line following like your own personal interpretation of everything. You kind of have to veer off and look at other people to help you like climb a little higher. Look at somebody else, climb a little higher. Use that to develop who you are. That's why you have to be wise about who you're picking as your master. Like, you should pick somebody that you want to be influenced by, because you are going to sound like them a little bit. I can't see how this would be a productive experience, except maybe to say that you played for him in person. If you're looking at it from trying to develop your own personal expression and that's it, I don't think you're going to see playing for Segovia as a productive experience, because this masterclass is only a seed for developing your interpretation. There are so many music classes that I've taken, like jazz classes. Like, I write all the information down, but I don't apply any of it, and I walk away from it with no new knowledge. All I have is just the exposure to it. Then the years following, that's when the stuff is actually setting in. And that happens with like my theory classes too. Like, I've taken like college theory classes where there was a concept and I just like make a D or something on the quiz, and I don't even think about that concept until a year later, and then I start applying it to the guitar. I wouldn't have done that had I not been exposed to it. I don't think that you should look at any masterclass or any lesson as like something you walk away from with immediate knowledge. Like, it's just seeds and exposure. And I think Chapdelaine walked away with quite a bit. Like, you could even see in the interview the next day, like, I think that gave him some stuff to think about. That's just a sentiment that I see a lot. It's not an immediate benefit that you're gonna get. So following the score precisely may mean that you get a very good comment from him, but it shows nothing of your own musicianship / interpretive ideas, something that highlights how Segovia was too limited in his own dogma, that he wasn't open to even considering any other possibilities in interpretation / performance. Yeah, maybe he wasn't. I kind of get that though. Like, that's mentioned in the thing, like he's been playing for like 60 years at that point or something. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, as a student, to learn somebody else's interpretation. I see that as like learning someone else's music. I just see that as knowledge. You can pick if you want to do it or not. They're all decisions. That's the thing. It's never going to help you to have an arsenal of decisions and different performers that you can sound more like and that you can mix together and eventually make your own sophisticated and unique interpretation. So that's the thing. When these kids go in and they already want to have their own interpretation when they're way below the level of the master, it just seems arrogant. And I think Segovia picked up on that, and he's like, what am I going to show you? Like, what am I going to say? Good job? Am I going to say like, oh wow, you're so good, you're better than me? I don't see why you need to come to me to work on your interpretation. Like, it seems like you already got it. What else is Segovia supposed to teach you other than his own interpretation and the stuff that he would do? Segovia's attitude and derogatory comments clearly did not instill a positive environment in that masterclass setting, masterclass in quotes. I agree with that. Segovia was a jerk. I guess I don't expect Segovia to not be a jerk though. Think about the many David Russell masterclass videos online. We've watched a few of those. We should watch more of them. He often says to the performer in a friendly manner, who is offered a better fingering idea, play it your way here and now, but go away and just consider my suggestion. Yeah, that is a better and more productive way of going about things. I agree. I think there is something to be said about Segovia, like, kind of pioneering guitar into the modern age. And so he probably feels that he has like more authority than David Russell might feel like he has, because David Russell is like of the age of like students of Segovia. So I don't know, that character of like the original guy who like made all the stuff, I feel like he's gonna be more rigid about everybody copying him. It probably feels pretty personal to him. Like when David Russell is teaching Bach that he didn't finger, but you just learned like 2 different fingerings of it, the student isn't saying, I didn't like your fingerings so I changed them. They're saying like, we just learned different fingerings of the same piece. Maybe yours is better, I just never considered it. But Chapdelaine had Segovia's fingerings that Segovia put his name on and said like, these are the best fingerings. I'm saying this as the pioneer of the modern guitar. Play these. And Chapdelaine was like, no, I won't be playing these. I think these are better. I think it's a little bit different. Play it your way here and now, but go away and just consider my suggestion. Yeah, exactly. It's just a seed that's being planted. And I think every masterclass is that, and every lesson is that. You can't go into these things and expect miracles to happen. It's really rare for somebody to just say something to you that actually changes your guitar life meaningfully. And usually if that does happen, it's because a seed was growing and then that flower blossoms and it just needed that one word that's like a little ray of sunshine that just shined on it. But it's never just out of nowhere. If you have an epiphany, it's because you were building to one, I think. This to me is a much better way of interacting with the performer and making him feel good. Yeah, I agree. I think David Russell is a better teacher. I've learned way more from David Russell and Julian Bream and John Williams than I have from Segovia. All I really learned from Segovia is that he hates flamenco, lived in Granada and thought it was like epic and the best. What else? He married somebody who was like 50 years younger, some crazy, it wasn't 50, but she was a lot younger. And he was nice to David Russell. So, you know, that's something. I really haven't learned much from Segovia. I've learned a lot more about just who he is as a person. But yeah, those are just kind of my impressions. I'm arguing with you. I mostly agree with you that like it wasn't that helpful, at least in like the traditional sense. I think it was helpful in other ways. I think it did probably mold his musicianship after that. And I actually watched a lesson with Chap Delaney. He was just teaching right hand technique. He seems like a really good teacher. Like I know he passed recently, but he has videos that are like really solid. Yeah, y'all should check out his right hand technique video. I think it's on like Guitar World YouTube channel or something. All right, so like I said, there's so much more to say about that, but I gotta wrap this up. Let's go ahead and get to the practice. We will talk about this more later, and I'll see you there. Okay, I think that's enough of that. Obviously, if there are any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them, and I will address them at some point. All right, well, I'm gonna get into the Bach. And I'm feeling pretty good about the Bach. Feeling pretty Bach-y-walky. Actually, my sheet music is almost dead. So I'm going to let that charge while I work on scales. All right, well, I'll see you on the other side. So I mainly worked on the Presto today. That was the big focus. I'm cutting it off a little early because I got a call from a friend who wants to hang out, and I kind of want to hang out too. I haven't talked to another person in a little while, like in real life, I mean. So I'm going to do that, but let me bring it closer. Which reminds me of a comment that I got a long time ago. It was like an early one. It was something along the lines of like, spends all his time in his modest apartment, and he like called me an intermediate guitarist. Does he have any life outside of this? My first impression is I think not. It was something like that. It was pretty savage. That's the vibes that I'm feeling right now. It's like, oh, I can go talk to a person. That's cool. By the way, intermediate guitarist, I feel like that's very fair. Like, who's the advanced? Like, I consider that on like a 5 level. So you have like beginner, novice, intermediate, expert, master. If all the like performing gods like David Russell, Julian Bremer, master, I'm probably like intermediate. If intermediate's a 3 and master's a 5, I might be like a 3.2 or a 3.3. Advanced would be like a younger professor or like somebody with a doctorate, somebody who's really good, like performing. And then master would be like the superstars, right? I'll take intermediate, that's fine. Anyways, ooh, let me actually get a side angle. All right, I'm gonna play what I have of the Presto. Where am I? Oh no. Oh, I'm gonna cut to where I know where I am. I should stop. Alright, I've read through the whole thing, and I can read through it comfortably, like, slow. Give that one a few more days, and I will be able to play the whole thing for you at a slow speed. I didn't practice everything. I'm cutting it off a little bit short. I'm going to practice the rest of it later today, though. Like, throughout the day. Because, you know, I can do that. That's fine. But we're cutting this one off. Let's go ahead and make our way to the outro. Alright, well, hopefully you enjoyed that. And on the first comment, there are a lot of comments about that I didn't talk about. Maybe we can talk about them if this becomes, like, a thing to talk talk about going forward. If you made it this far, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, all that stuff. And if you're interested in lessons, I'm offering lessons to YouTube viewers, so check the description for that. If you have any questions about anything or comments, feel free to leave them, and I will address them at some point in the chair. Alright, well, I'll see you tonight.